Have you ever wondered why sleep no longer heals you? Why you wake up more exhausted than when you collapsed the night before? What if I told you that what you call tiredness is not in your muscles, but in your soul? That your fatigue is not from doing too much, but from carrying too much that was never yours to begin with. You see, most people don't realize it, but they are not resting. They are retreating from themselves. And the real question is, what are you truly running from beneath your desire to rest? The world has taught you to treat your body like a battery and your mind like a machine. But I am here to tell you that is a lie. You are not a mechanism that breaks down from overuse. You are a being of symbols, stories, wounds, and dreams. And when these remain unheard, unspoken, unlived, the body becomes a graveyard of suppressed emotions. You're not tired. You are saturated with the grief of not being seen, drained by the weight of masks you've forgotten you're still wearing, and haunted by the version of yourself you abandoned long ago in the name of survival. There is an exhaustion that no amount of sleep can heal. It is the soul's cry for truth beneath the roles you perform each day. It is the ache of being alive without being authentic. You were not born to fulfill expectations, you were born to become. But how can one become anything when the mirror only reflects what others want to see? This weariness you feel, it is not physical. It is the cost of a life unlived, of words never spoken, of emotions buried in silence, of truth swallowed to keep the peace, while a war rages inside and yet you go on, smiling, working, posting, pretending. But something deep within knows. It knows when you lie to yourself. It knows that your strength is a facade, your karma cage. The psyche cannot be fooled forever. It rebels in the form of anxiety, of emptiness, of that strange sense of not belonging even in your own skin. What you call tiredness is the unconscious demanding attention. The shadow knocking at the door. The archetypes within you screaming to be remembered. But will you listen? Or will you numb it again with another distraction? You think this is just another video, don't you? But I am not here to comfort you. I am here to disturb you, to peel away the illusions you have wrapped around your pain. This is not a story with answers. This is a descent into the labyrinth of your own being, and what you find at the end will not be something new, but something ancient that you forgot, yourself. So if you dare to look beyond the veil, stay, because the next truth might be the one you've been avoiding your entire life, and once you hear it, you won't be able to go back. You say you're tired, but I wonder, tired of what? Tired of living or tired of not truly living at all? Tired of movement or tired of never going anywhere that matters? There is a silence growing inside your soul that even the loudest distractions can no longer drown out. It hums beneath the surface of every polite smile, every shallow conversation, every plan that no longer excites you. It's not your body that is begging for rest. It's your being that is begging to be heard. You've been asleep while awake, walking without arriving, breathing without ever feeling truly alive. And every night you close your eyes hoping for rest, but instead you meet the weight, that invisible heaviness that no amount of sleep can lift. You call it tiredness. I call it a spiritual drought, a desert within, formed by years of pretending, pleasing, and suppressing what was once wild in you. The world taught you early how to perform, how to act strong when you are breaking, how to smile when your insides are burning, how to become useful at the cost of your soul's truth. And now you wonder why you feel hollow, why every step feels heavier, why your dreams don't thrill you anymore. It's because you've been edited, fragmented by expectations, programmed into roles that do not honor the totality of your being. You became acceptable, but not whole, functional, but not free. You have learned to endure, but not to feel. You have mastered survival, but forgotten how to belong to yourself. And now, all that you denied returns in whispers. Whispers that grow louder with each passing night. The pain is not punishment, it is memory, a memory of your unbroken self, waiting beneath the ruins of your compromises. There is a war inside you, not loud, not violent, but steady. A slow war between who you are and who you've become to survive. Every yes you say when you mean no is another cut. Every time you silence your truth to keep the peace, another wound. But you keep walking. You keep producing, scrolling, responding, because to stop would mean to feel, and to feel would mean to confront the truth that you have been living outside yourself for far too long. That exhaustion is not from the weight of the world, but from the weight of your own disconnection. You are not broken, you are buried. And the soul, unlike the body, does not scream, it withers, slowly, silently, until even joy feels like work and hope feels like betrayal. That is what you are calling tiredness. But tiredness does not come with grief. This is not tired, this is soul hunger. You feel it in the quiet when no one is watching and you no longer have to pretend. You stare at the ceiling and wonder where the years have gone, how the fire turned to smoke, how the music became noise. You catch glimpses of yourself in reflections and wonder who is looking back. There was once a version of you that laughed without guilt, that danced without judgment, that believed without shame. That version did not disappear. It was buried beneath the roles, the duties, the betrayals, especially the ones you committed against yourself. And every time you suppress your anger, your sadness, your longing, you do not destroy the feeling. You store it. In your neck, in your chest, in your stomach, in your sleep, until your body becomes a living archive of everything you never said out loud. And it speaks, in fatigue, in anxiety, in the numbness you've started calling normal. But there is another way, not one of escape, but of remembrance. Not one of fixing, but of facing. When you stop seeing your tiredness as a flaw to be corrected and begin to see it as a signal, a sacred signal from your unconscious, the healing begins. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you finally stop lying to yourself. The soul does not ask for comfort. It asks for authenticity, for congruence, for truth. You are not exhausted because you did too much. You are exhausted because you abandoned too much of what mattered. You left behind your voice, your instincts, your wildness, your truth, and now it calls to you, not in words, but in symptoms, in the ache that will not go away, in the sadness that has no story, in the strange emptiness that follows every achievement. You are not tired. You are awakening. You are beginning to feel the cost of your forgetting, and that pain, if you let it speak, will lead you home. You've mistaken stillness for laziness and numbness for peace. But what if the stillness is actually your soul refusing to move until it is acknowledged? What if the numbness is not tranquility, but your psyche retreating, withdrawing its presence from a life that no longer reflects who you are? There is a terrible clarity that comes when the unconscious decides to rise. Not as a roar, but as a quiet revolt, a disruption of your usual patterns. You cancel plans without knowing why. You avoid people who once made you smile. You scroll for hours hoping to feel something, anything. But nothing lands. Nothing reaches that place within that aches for meaning. That is the unconscious, tired of being ignored. And when the unconscious speaks, it does not use language, it uses symbols, it uses absence. It uses fatigue. You see, true exhaustion isn't born from effort. It's born from resistance. You are resisting your own becoming. You are resisting the death of the false self. And so long as you keep it alive, the true self must starve. Jung spoke of this inner split, this division between persona and shadow. You wear the mask because the world rewards it. You silence the shadow because the world fears it. But the soul cannot thrive in a life curated only for visibility. Visibility is not the same as authenticity. To be seen is not the same as being known. And so you perform. Even in your most private moments, you perform for the internalized voices of parents, teachers, partners, each one shaping you into something consumable, digestible, safe. But the true self is never safe. It is raw, chaotic, divine. It does not negotiate with expectations, it breaks them. And that is where your fatigue truly lies, not in what you do, but in what you deny. You are exhausted because you've become a stranger in your own temple, because you feel things you were taught to hide, because your joy is conditional and your sadness must be justified. There is no rest in repression. There is no healing in pretending. And yet you keep folding your soul into smaller spaces, into productivity, into people-pleasing, into spiritual bypassing, You tell yourself it's just a phase, that you're just stressed. But deep down, you know this is something else, something ancient, something sacred, a reckoning. The body doesn't lie. It speaks through symptoms, and if you don't listen, it will scream through collapse. So this weight you carry, it is not asking to be pushed through, it is asking to be witnessed. Do you remember the last time you felt truly alive? Not stimulated, not entertained, but alive. Where were you? Who were you? And, more importantly, who are you now beneath all the layers? There is a forest growing inside you, wild and untamed, and you've built a house of logic right in its center. But the roots are pushing through the floor, the vines are reclaiming the walls. You cannot control what you have denied for too long. It will come back, not to punish but to complete, because the soul will always return to what was left behind, and the parts of you that were abandoned in the name of adulthood are not gone, they are dormant, they are waiting, and every ounce of emotional exhaustion is a knock on the door of your forgetting, each one an invitation. Return, reclaim, remember. It is not a mental breakdown, it is a soul uprising. It is the unconscious rising to confront the illusion. To ask, who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when there is no one left to impress? Who are you when the masks fall and the silence stretches long enough for truth to echo? You see, the healing you seek is not found in more effort. It is found in surrender, in radical honesty, in the terrifying act of feeling what you've spent your life avoiding. That is the real labor. That is the real initiation. And yes, that is exhausting, because healing is not the absence of pain, it is the confrontation of pain with presence, with truth, with light that does not blind but illuminates the wounds so they can be integrated. You do not need more sleep. You need to wake up, that not in the body but in the spirit, in the memory of your wholeness, in the sacred knowing that your exhaustion is not your enemy, it is your guide. There comes a moment, silent yet irreversible, when the pain of pretending becomes greater than the fear of being seen. At first it arrives like a whisper, barely distinguishable from the noise of your routines, but then it grows. It moves through your body, subtle and persistent, interrupting your thoughts, bending your breath, flooding your sleep with symbols you don't yet understand. You try to explain it away with words like stress or burnout, but these are labels crafted by a culture that fears the soul. What you are experiencing is not fatigue. It is a rupture, a fracture between the life you were told to live and the life that wants to emerge from within. And you feel it not in grand revelations, but in the small betrayals. The yes that meant no, the smile that cost too much, the silence that swallowed your truth whole. You are not weak for feeling this. In fact, your pain is proof that your soul is still alive, still intact beneath the layers of roles and responsibilities. But you were taught that emotion is a liability, that vulnerability is a flaw. And so you built armor from ambition, from detachment, from intellectualization. You became efficient, controlled, successful. But the soul does not thrive in efficiency. It thrives in depth, in presence, in paradox. And this armor it has kept you safe, yes, but it has also kept you separate. From others, from truth, from yourself. Now the armor is cracking and you are terrified. But let me tell you, the cracks are not your failure. They are your beginning. Jung spoke of individuation not as a luxury, but as a necessity, the sacred journey back to the self. And this journey is not lit with certainty or comfort. It is lit with suffering, the kind that strips you of falsehoods and dares you to live naked before the mirror of your own becoming. That is where you are now, at the threshold. One foot in the known, the other in the unknown. Exhaustion is your signal. It is the invitation to stop pretending that you don't hear the call, to stop performing wellness while your inner world collapses in silence. Because every time you ignore this call, it returns louder. First as restlessness, then as sadness, then as dis-ease, until finally it consumes you, not to destroy you but to initiate you. You were never meant to live fragmented. You were never meant to divide yourself into roles and functions just to be accepted. And yet you did. We all did. That is the curse of adaptation. The child learns quickly which parts of themselves are safe to show, and which must be hidden to secure love. But love bought with self-abandonment is never truly love. It is dependency, and dependency drains. You feel tired because your very identity has become a prison, crafted not from malice, but from the innocent desire to belong. But belonging that costs your truth is exile in disguise. So now the body protests. The soul resists. You call it exhaustion, but it is more than that. It is the sacred rebellion of the self against the false self. It is your unconscious demanding to be made conscious. And I ask you now, what if your tiredness is holy? What if your collapse is not a failure, but a ritual of return? Every culture has its myths of descent, into the underworld, into the dark forest, into the belly of the beast. You are in your myth now. This is your descent. And though it may feel like you are falling apart, something deeper is falling into place. The center cannot hold because it was never real to begin with. The persona is cracking because the soul is rising. And though it feels like death, it is a kind of birth. A slow, painful, sacred rebirth into authenticity. But birth always comes with labor, and labor always comes with pain. You are not lost. You are being reassembled, not according to society's template, but according to your inner blueprint. The map etched into your bones long before you learned how to shrink. And if you listen, truly listen, beneath the tiredness, beneath the ache, beneath the silence, you will hear it. The pulse, the call, the ancient voice that has no words but speaks directly to your becoming. It says, you are more than what you perform. You are more than what you produce. You are more than what you've been taught to suppress. This is not the end. This is the invitation. And though it may take everything from you, what it gives in return cannot be measured. Because what it offers is you. You have reached the edge, the trembling frontier between who you were and who you are becoming. And yet there is no clear road, no path lit by certainty, no hand to hold in the darkness, only the ache of what must be shed and the whisper of what longs to emerge. This is the territory of the soul, wild, unpredictable, symbolic. You will not think your way out of this. You will not fix it with discipline or schedule it into a weekend retreat, because this is not about time. This is about truth, and truth demands presence, not performance. It demands that you feel the full weight of what you've carried, and that you finally ask, why have I made myself responsible for everyone's expectations, but abandoned my own inner calling in the process? The answer is not simple, because the wound is not simple. You see, your emotional exhaustion is a consequence of 1,000 tiny betrayals. Moments you swallowed your words, moments you gave what you didn't have, moments you said yes out, of fear, not desire. Each of these moments seemed insignificant in isolation, but the body remembers. The soul records. And now here you are, not broken but overburdened by your own history. You are not failing, you are full of unprocessed grief, unmet needs, forgotten dreams. This is not burnout, it is backlog. A lifetime of emotional residues that were never granted the space to breathe, to weep, to speak. And so they settled into your shoulders, your breath, your stomach, your sleep, until your very being began to dim beneath the weight of all that remained unexpressed. And here is where many turn back. Here is where they reach again for distraction, for control, for something familiar to numb the sacred disorientation of awakening. Because to face it all, to truly meet the self, means dissolving what once felt like identity. It means mourning who you were pretending to be. It means letting the false structures collapse without knowing what will rise in their place, and that is terrifying. But it is also liberation, because what you are mourning is not your life, it is your mask. And though its falling may feel like death, it is the beginning of breath. A breath not borrowed, a breath that is yours entirely. Undeniably, finally, you were not born to be depleted. You were born to be lit from within. But you cannot light a flame if you are drowning in suppression. You cannot reclaim your fire until you touch the ashes of what you abandoned. This is not poetic. It is physiological, psychological, archetypal. Jung knew this, that the shadow, the repressed, the feared, the unwanted, holds the very vitality we are missing, that what you avoid is not the enemy, it is the gatekeeper, and what you're calling tiredness is not the signal to rest, but the signal to return. Return to what is real, return to what was silenced, return to the voice you once trusted before you learned to filter it through approval and fear. You will not recover by retreating further from yourself. You will not heal by pretending you are fine. You must descend, not into despair but into depth. You must walk into the forest with bare feet and open hands. You must listen to what the body has been trying to say, not in words, but in symptoms. That anxiety is not madness, it is misalignment. That fatigue is not failure. It is your soul calling time out on a life that does not honor it. And that numbness is not peace, it is the final defense of a heart that has grown tired of pretending. You are not weak, you are sensitive, you are not dramatic, you are alive. And that life and that pulsing, aching, burning life is sacred. So now, you are asked to choose, not with logic, but with presence. To choose whether you will continue dragging yourself through a story that no longer fits, or whether you will finally, gently, courageously, step out of the narrative and begin again. Not by becoming something new, but by remembering what you already are beneath the exhaustion, beneath the noise, beneath the forgetting. You are not lost. You are buried, and your fatigue is the shovel, your ache is the map, your truth is the compass. All this time, it was not the world draining you. It was your own disconnection from the infinite wellspring within. You have not run out of energy. You have run out of roles that reflect your essence. And that is not an ending, it is an initiation, the most sacred one. And so here we are, not at the end, but at the threshold of a silence that means something different now. The kind of silence that doesn't beg to be filled, but invites you to listen. You came here looking for rest, perhaps, but what you found was not rest. It was the recognition of a weight you've carried for far too long without a name. The exhaustion that has followed you like a shadow was never your enemy. It was your messenger. And now that it has spoken, can you truly go back to sleep? You have touched the edge of something ancient, something that doesn't live in the mind but beneath it, a knowing that precedes words, that cannot be explained, only felt. This fatigue you called weakness was, in truth, the soul asking to be felt again. And feeling, truly feeling, is not passive. It is an act of revolution, against the noise, against the masks, against every moment you chose silence over truth because truth threatened to unravel the life you had built. But now you see, the unraveling is not a loss. It is an opening, and openings are sacred. This journey was never about becoming someone new. It was about peeling back what was never you to begin with, the costumes, the roles, the borrowed dreams. Now you stand not in clarity but in honesty. And that is far more powerful, because clarity seeks to answer, but honesty allows you to ask better questions. The kind of questions that echo through the soul long after the mind has gone quiet. What parts of you have you exiled to survive? What truths have you buried beneath the rituals of being fine? What would it mean to live a life where tiredness is not proof of effort, but proof that the soul is unheard? You are not alone in this. We all wear masks and we all, in some quiet hour, feel the fatigue of holding them in place. But most keep walking, ignoring the growing tension beneath the surface. You didn't. You stopped. You listened. You looked into the mirror and asked a forbidden question. What if everything I thought made me strong is what's keeping me tired? And that question, that tremor of truth, is enough to fracture lifetimes of silence, enough to begin again, not with haste, but with reverence. For you are not here to conquer your exhaustion. You are here to understand what it reveals. And in that revelation, something shifts. The fatigue doesn't vanish, but it transforms. From heaviness into message. From burden into meaning. You begin to realize that perhaps it was never about doing less, but about being more of what you truly are, not diluted, not adapted, not presented, but felt, fully, fiercely, freely. And so you walk not away from the tiredness, but into it, with new eyes, with the courage not to escape, but to uncover. Because now you know the body weeps what the soul cannot say, and the soul only weeps for what still matters. So let this be your quiet revolution, not with declarations, but with decisions, small ones, sacred ones, to rest not only your body, but your pretending, to breathe not only for survival, but for self-remembrance, to feel not just the joy, but the ache that brought you here. You are not tired, you are returning, and every heartbeat is now a step back into the center, the place you left, but that never left you. And if there is one truth I want to leave echoing in you, one that cannot be silenced even after these words fade, it is this: you are not exhausted because you are weak. You are exhausted because you are awakening. Let it haunt you gently. Let it rise in moments of quiet. Let it remind you that you are not here to sleep through your own life. Now, if these words stirred something in you, if a truth long buried began to breathe again, then I invite you not just to click a button, but to choose a path. Become part of what we are building here. A space not of performance, but of presence, not of content, but of connection. Like this video if it echoed something unspoken in you. Comment if you have the courage to name what you're reclaiming. Share it if someone you love is carrying a tiredness they don't yet understand. And subscribe to Archimind, not for another voice in the noise, but for a deeper silence where your truth can begin to rise. We are not many, but we are real. And sometimes one real thing is enough to change everything. Shall we begin again, this time from within?